by the time it's all said and done, you will see who is the mass murderers.
The guy shouting over there is Ronnie O'Neal. Don't judge him by his spiky hair and think he's a clown. If you were to hear about the criminal record of this murderer, you would definitely shiver in fear as if you were watching a horror movie. Ronnie O'Neal might be a name familiar to many, but the crimes he committed will certainly be remembered for a long time. On March 18th, 2018, Ronnie O'Neal shot and beat his ex-girlfriend Kenyatta Barron to death, along with their 9-year-old autistic daughter. He then repeatedly stabbed their 8-year-old son, but the boy miraculously survived. During the trial, O'Neal chose to represent himself, and in a bizarre moment, he directly faced his son, who bravely testified against him. Born and raised in Riverview, Florida, Ronnie O'Neal is an African-American with a passion for music. He even composed music and performed. O'Neal's family life was far from happy, as his father suffered from mental illness, diagnosed with bipolar disorder and schizophrenia. This may have negatively impacted O'Neal, making it difficult for him to keep up with his peers academically. However, O'Neal was fortunate enough to graduate. With limited knowledge, O'Neal was unable to pursue further education or secure a job anywhere. As a result, O'Neal applied to take the U.S. Marine Corps entrance exam. But once again, life played a cruel trick on him when he failed to pass the exam. To make ends meet, O'Neal had to take on many jobs, such as a casino worker and a truck driver. The temptations of life and his surroundings led him down the path of crime. O'Neal was arrested in 2009 on charges of theft, possession of marijuana, and driving without a valid license. After his release from prison, O'Neal began a relationship with Kenyatta Barron, also known as Kiki, and they had 2 children together. However, they never had an official wedding. Their 9-year-old daughter, Ranivia, was non-verbal and diagnosed with cerebral palsy and autism. Their 8-year-old son, Ronnie IV, was fortunately healthy. Dissatisfied with his life and feeling overwhelmed by pressure, O'Neal and Barron frequently argued. There were reports that Barron had been subjected to long-term abuse. Even their daughter with cerebral palsy and their son suffered the same fate as their mother. Unable to endure it any longer, in 2012, Barron finally filed a court request demanding O'Neal pay child support. However, O'Neal continuously delayed payments, which deeply frustrated Barron. By 2016, O'Neal had another child with a different girlfriend. During this time, he also developed a strong interest in Islam, even publicly identifying himself as a member of the Nation of Islam on Facebook. However, in November 2017, O'Neal, then 29 years old, was severely injured in Tampa after being involved in a drive-by shooting. He was rushed to the hospital in cardiac arrest, and doctors fought hard to bring him back from the brink of death. Unfortunately, he would later use this second chance at life to commit further crimes. After O'Neal was injured, his friends, family, and even his new girlfriend abandoned him. Just when it seemed like all hope was lost, Barron, his ex-girlfriend whom he had abused, appeared as a savior, willing to take him in once again. At the time, Barron was 33 years old, and out of pity for the father of her children, she decided to allow O'Neal to live with her until he recovered. This decision went against her mother's advice, and in truth, it may have been the worst decision she ever made. On the night of March 18th, 2018, While enjoying a peaceful evening with his girlfriend James Gray, the neighbor of Barron and O'Neal heard screams and loud banging noises. Gray told his girlfriend to stay inside and call 911 while he went outside to see what was happening at the neighbor's house. When Gray stepped outside, he saw the front door of the neighbor's house open, with two figures in the smoke at the end of a long hallway, and blood splattered on the walls. Upon closer inspection, Gray saw Barron lying motionless on the ground. O'Neal was standing, gripping Barron's arm tightly, holding something in his right hand that couldn't be clearly identified. At that moment, O'Neal began screaming like a demon. He uttered bitter words, as if Barron had wronged him. Gray recalled that O'Neal looked completely deranged, continuously yelling, "Allahu Akbar, and you don't understand, she killed me." Afterward, O'Neal let go of Barron's arm and retreated into his own home. At that point, only Gray and Barron, lying motionless in a pool of blood with no signs of life, remained outside. Later, when collecting evidence, the police released the 911 call. However, the call did not originate from Gray's home, but from Barron's apartment. The first voice the dispatchers heard was none other than the ill-fated Barron herself. O'Neal, who spoke to the dispatcher, claimed that Barron had been attacked by white demons and was trying to kill him. He even calmly provided the police with Barron's home address, where he had just committed the crime, showing no fear at all. According to the autopsy report from the medical examiner, Dr. Mary Mainland, Barron sustained a gunshot wound to the back of her right shoulder and her right elbow. O'Neal then used the handgun as a blunt object to beat Barron. She suffered over 15 lacerations to her head, 6 to 7 skull fractures, a broken jaw, fractured facial bones, and multiple fractures at the base of her skull. Several teeth were also knocked out. The official cause of death was brain hemorrhage due to blunt force trauma. She had been beaten to death within minutes after she called 911, just before neighbor Gray discovered the scene. After brutally killing the woman who had taken him in, O'Neal heartlessly murdered their disabled daughter, who was unable to defend herself with an axe. The attack was so severe that forensic experts couldn't identify her remains. His 8-year-old healthy son, little Ronnie, also didn't escape his father's insanity. O'Neal attacked little Ronnie, causing him serious injuries. As if this wasn't enough, O'Neal poured gasoline on little Ronnie and set the house on fire. When police arrived at Barron's house at 11:59 p.m., they soon saw flames emerging from inside the home. Law enforcement quickly moved in and entered the house. The living room area was completely engulfed in flames. Little Ronnie, covered in blood, was rescued. As he was being carried out, little Ronnie didn't forget to say, "My dad shot my mom." O'Neal was quickly apprehended shortly after. Although he resisted with a taser, he couldn't overpower the police. While being transported in the patrol car, O'Neal kept saying that Barron and his children were demons. He was taken to the Hillsborough County Jail the next day. O'Neal was charged with resisting arrest, 2 counts of first-degree murder, and 1 count of attempted first-degree murder. The trial of O'Neal took place on June 16, 2021. Strangely enough, O'Neal chose to act as his own lawyer and defend himself. He was allowed to do so because the 6th Amendment clearly grants this right. A defendant has the right to represent themselves in a criminal trial, although judges typically advise against it. The court is obligated to address such a petition and determine whether the defendant fully understands the risks of waiving the right to legal counsel and whether they are doing so of their own free will. After considering all matters, the court allowed O'Neal to act as his own attorney. O'Neal's son, little Ronnie, who survived his father's vicious knife attacks, bravely testified for the prosecution. O'Neal's self-representation led to some unusual moments during the trial that day.
A fraudulent recording where they allege that I beat Kenyatta Barron to death. He talked about Mr. Khalil Brown, my neighbor who stayed across the street. But if Mr. Khalil Brown was a help to them proving me guilty beyond a reasonable doubt, they would have called Mr. Khalil Brown. But I called Mr. Khalil Brown to be a witness for me, because he's playing a fraudulent damn recording of me beating Kenyatta Barron 15 damn times when that did not happen. Evidence is going to show that we are under some of the most vicious, lying, fabricating, fictitious government you ever seen. Who is the mass murderers? In Tampa Bay, the state of Florida. You will know why what occurred on March 18, 2018 occurred. And the evidence is going to show that law enforcement tampered with evidence to meet their such high burden of proof.
O'Neal's demeanor was extremely aggressive, and he even accused Florida law enforcement of fabricating evidence. However, to the judge, these claims were nothing more than a comedy show, with no substantial proof to support his allegations. In fact, his amateurish and improper defense tactics added the charge of slander without evidence to his case. Later, O'Neal's son bravely took the stand to testify against his father. The following is a recorded excerpt from the trial.
State, you ready to proceed?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I just saw my dad holding a shotgun and my mom, and mom screaming at him.
And your father had a shotgun. What happened next? What did he do?
My mom ran in my sister's room. My mom ran in my sister's room into the closet. And then my dad said, come in here and come kill the B-word.
Did you hear any shots from the shotgun before that?
Yes.
How many times?
One.
Was there a time when your mother was able to get out of the closet?
She was stumbling outside, and then I just saw my dad chase her.
What do you remember happening next?
My dad told me to walk around and say some words.
And do you remember what words your father told you to say?
Allah Akbar.
Allahu Akbar?
Yes.
Did he do something to your sister?
Yes, he hit her with an axe. And then he went in the garage. I followed him. He put me on the ground, and then he had his foot on top. I was laying on my stomach. He had his foot on top of me, and he was holding me down. And he was lighting a match.
The son recounted the entire incident, his voice still filled with fear. However, O'Neal remained quite calm as he cross-examined his own son.
Mr. O'Neal, any questions?
How you doing, Ronnie?
Good.
It's good to see you, man.
Good to see you too.
Did you see me shoot your mom?
No.
Did I hurt you that night of this incident?
Yes.
I did. And how did I hurt you?
After the trial concluded, O'Neal was convicted of murdering his girlfriend and daughter, as well as attempting to murder his son. On June 25, 2021, O'Neal was ultimately sentenced to 3 life sentences plus 60 years in prison. This marked the end for the heartless man who killed the person who had helped him. Even the judge, tasked with upholding justice based on the law, could not maintain her composure when speaking about the atrocities committed by O'Neal. These were the words the judge said about O'Neal. She stated that this was the worst case she had ever seen.
19 years I've been at this job. I've seen human beings killed at the hands of others in every way imaginable. You name it, I've seen it. Shootings, stabbings, drownings, suffocatings, blown apart by cars, some DUI manslaughter cases, horrible things. This is the worst case I have ever seen as far as the facts go. Because there is no way any person with any feeling could have witnessed or seen the photos of what occurred that night and not be haunted for the rest of your life. I know I will be. For the rest of my life, I'll be haunted by what I saw as far as the evidence and just the abject cruelty of it all. The abject cruelty.
Everything seemed to have come to an end. One might have expected the murderer to feel some remorse for what he had done, for the brutal violence he inflicted on his loved ones. But no, O'Neal had lost his sanity. Even in his final moments, he maintained that he was innocent. Perhaps the judge was right. This was the worst case with the most inhumane killer.
I am not sorry for something I didn't do, and I am not sorry for the things I did do.
"I'm not sorry for something I didn't do," were O'Neal's final screams as he was taken away after his last trial. We may never know whether O'Neal will feel remorse or regret in the years to come, but at least the law has imprisoned a monster, preventing him from harming society in the future.